Welcome back, Seelings.
Why is everybody taking my welcome back?
We're just making fun of you.
Man, Mark
back.
does it, you do it. That's a craziness.
We're still on verse 1.
Man, if we start new shows, people are going to be going, welcome back.
Welcome back. Welcome back.
All right, we're on verse 1. Verse 1
Still
of
verse
what?
1. Verse 1. Isaiah 6. Don't they know? My outfit's the same. They should just know.
So, Seeds people didn't get to hear you this morning talking or giving me a hard time this afternoon about
what?
the fact that I did.
Wait a minute.
What was it? Nehemiah chapter 8 and Nehemiah chapter 8 2 weeks in a row?
Oh, no. The verse. It was like 1 Samuel 16, verse 8. And then 1 Samuel 16, verse 8. I'm like, are we doing a third video of
two totally
verse
different
8?
Right, so I'm very capable of doing one verse. That's what I'm trying to say to you, which everybody knows. All right, Isaiah chapter 6.
Verse 1.
Verse 1. You should probably read the verse 1.
I'm going to read it, but I am not stopping this time.
No, if I get stuck, it's not me, it's God.
Ugh.
Here we go.
I don't know which version I want to read.
You want to read the version that has...
I want to read the one that goes on to page 777.
Got it.
That's fun.
All right, let's do it.
All right, in the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord sitting upon a throne, high and lifted up, and the train of his robe filled the temple. Above him stood the seraphim. Each had 6... Can I... Yeah, I'm allowed. I'm not you. Can I just say that he says above him stood the seraphim. Like he knew what they were.
Yep.
Like they just roamed about. Like he saw them every other... Like above him stood the giraffe. Like no big deal. Like...
Just was there. Yeah.
Man.
Pretty commonplace.
Are we missing this? Like, have you ever seen a seraphim?
No.
We must not be, I don't know, enlightened or something.
Might disqualify us from teaching at Seeds, so,
Yeah, okay. We'll skip the seraphim then. We won't talk about that.
All right.
We're not qualified. Apparently, they have 6 wings.
Mm-hmm.
With 2, he covered his face.
Mm-hmm.
With 2, he covered his feet. And with 2, he flew.
Ooh.
That's dangerous. You got your eyes covered and your feet covered and you're going to fly around like that?
Yeah,
this is why they probably went extinct.
You could imagine.
He probably flew around, their eyes covered.
Along with the Pegasus.
Their feet covered.
Oh, that's a mountain.
Oh my gosh. And one, there's many of them. One called to another and said, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory.
Oh, see, can we just stop there?
I guess. Since I stopped 12 times.
You're like super, your worship time is amazing.
Oh,
right?
Okay.
But when we put this all together, right, it fits what you're saying. Like, we get this moment where all of a sudden Isaiah sees God.
He's like in heaven.
And when he sees God, all of a sudden he sees the things of God clearly. Right? So he's seeing the seraphim clearly. Why? Because it's the thing of God. Right? It's the same exact concept as when Elisha prays that his servant's eyes will be open. It gives you the idea that Elisha knew that there were chariots of fire all around, surrounding them. Right? There's this whole army on fire. And all of a sudden he's like, hey, could you just show my servant what I'm already seeing? Right?
This is why I said, be careful what you wish for, seedlings. You might just get it.
We want to get to a place where we see the things of God regularly, right? Now, again, I'm not talking about the way out there, like you see demons or see angels or see all that stuff. That's great. There are people who can see all that.
Listen, though, the things of God are scary. God is scary.
Apparently,
hence, everyone face planting, right? Except Isaiah. Apparently just
can you imagine me seeing
no.
As much as I want to see a Pegasus and that kind of thing?
It.
Can you imagine me seeing some creature out there that's got 6 wings flying around with their eyes covered like that? Like, no way, man. You are hiding as soon as you possibly can.
Well, so this is what I was thinking when you said that. Like, we want to get to the point where like you see things of God regularly and all this stuff. And okay, that doesn't mean you walk around in like this weird trippy you took ecstasy kind of mode, but like there's a reason that we don't see all this stuff regularly, and it's because we can't handle it.
No,
we can't handle it.
That's exactly.
There's a reason that people have tuned out the whole spiritual world over the last however many years, right? That like we don't believe. Well, people like to believe in angels because they're good. But like this whole everything, like there is no demonic anything. Apparently, no one is oppressed. We all just have mental disorders now. Like Yeah. No one's oppressed.
There's no
with
spirit
anything.
world.
There's no spirit world. We all just have some sort of medical ailment.
So we talk about that all the time. The greatest thing the enemy has ever done is convince people he doesn't exist.
So why the heck would God let you see Seraphim? You'd lose your mind. Like, you would die. You'd have a heart attack. Like, again, it's just like what I said in the last video. It's this seeing God thing, seeing all this stuff. You got to get to that point. Yeah, so and it's a process. Because you can't deal with it.
See, now, self-convicting, right? And you convicting, right? If we want to get to a point where we're really speaking for God, where we're really doing the things of God, where we're really performing miracles and we're doing all that stuff, right? Then God's going to ask us to see things differently, which means we're going to be called apart, which means we're going to have to go through things that we might not want to go through. That, like you said, this is about a bad king, right? This is during the time of a bad king now. Right? And so you look at this and you go, we don't want all that stuff. So are we willing to pay the price to hear from God? Are we willing to pay the price to see God? Right? We don't want that. We want the things of God without having to pay the price to see them, hear them, get to them. Yeah. Right? And we face that all the time, right? It's no fun. No fun being obedient to God when he says, like, hey, I need you not to do this. I need you not to be here. I need you not to be about this. I need you to stop doing this. I need you to... But if you really want to see God, right, that's the price that is paid. That's the price we have to pay.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, you can say it sucks, but it also doesn't suck. Like... Because then, that's why people think that they don't want to do it. It's hard. It's a half and half process, and it's worth it. But yeah, it's not easy.
But the problem is that we want, like Isaiah here is getting to see the things of God while living on earth. That's a hard thing because, again, what good does it do you to know all the things, see all the things of heaven, see all the things of God while you're living on this earth? Yeah. Right? What it does
can make you real depressed.
It can, but it does. The good that it does is has you in tune with God. Now, we know what's coming next for Isaiah, so we know, like, this is a process, right? I see God differently, right? I respond. I see how people are responding to the holiness of God, right? This response here, holy, 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 man, this is where we want to be, right? If we really saw God, this would be our response. We would recognize and hear about the holiness of God, right? The answer to a whole bunch of questions that we have on this earth about why can't God just accept this sin or this sin or this sin or this sin? Because he's holy, right? Because we can't be in the presence of him with any of that stuff. Right? And so when God gives us a little glimpse of who he is and what he wants us to say and what he wants us to do, we realize God can't tolerate our disobedience. God can't tolerate our half-heartedness. God can't, he's holy. It just doesn't work. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm stuck.
That's where I was too, so I'm preaching to me, right? It really is. It's the answer. It's the answer to our question of why is God asking us to do these things? Why is God making us wait for this? Why is God doing this? Why? Because he's a holy God. He's not going to do... the things of God are holy. The movements of God are holy.
Yeah, we don't get that word.
So why is he going to use unholy people in a holy... No, he makes people see his holiness. So for 1 second we get it, we do it right? What you saw, we're going back to the Mel in the Middle that by now hopefully people watched, right? What you saw was when you get a moment of obedience, you're in tune with God, you're recognizing his holiness, he has the right to ask you to do something, you're seeing then the trickle effect. And when Mel responds to that, then that brings in more obedience. And like it's just crazy how that works. Holiness brings about obedience and crazy things. But in the midst of it, what does the enemy want to do? He wants to get us to be disobedient, so we break the connection. We break the holiness, and he can remind God, see, they're not. God doesn't use holy people. He anoints people, makes them holy for a moment, and uses them. He uses our weakness and stuff because of Jesus. And we see that. It's not Isaiah is way better than you and I. Right? Isaiah just all of a sudden opened up his eyes, saw it, and God's like, I can use you. And that's all he's asking us to do. We open up your eyes for 1 minute and get it so I can use you. Let me give you a glimpse of this for 1 minute. Like, let me be off my soapbox. Yesterday, I watched a 4-year-old, probably maybe 5-year-old girl in a shopping cart do the greatest happy dance and song ever over getting a banana, wanting a banana. Imagine if we did the greatest happy dance and happy song over the little things that God gives us. Like where we just made it the end of, everybody in that store heard that little girl singing. I just happened to be right behind her in line and got to see the dance and got to see it all. Amazing. For one moment, the only thing that mattered in the world was her getting a banana.
It was a banana.
But what if that was it? What if for one moment in this world, the only thing that mattered was Jesus?
Well, yeah, that's how it is when you see these things, right? It is. But our problem is then the moment ends.
Yep.
And then it's just normal life, right? And then you're paying attention to all the other things. In those moments, you'll do anything. And you will obey out of, at minimum, fear of God. Right? Like, you will. You see God for real, and who cares? You do whatever he wants.
But then the enemy just reminds us of real life, or we go back into real life. Mm-hmm. Right? All the enemy has to do. Listen, I am going through a season where you get these little glimpses of God doing more and what your future is and what God wants, right? Maybe you're in the same place, right? We get these little, and then what does the enemy do? He immediately wants to remind us, but here's your reality. Here's the reality. Here's where you really live, Andy. Here's what's really going on, right? The enemy constantly wants us to do that, right? We get a glimpse of God. We get a glimpse of the great things God has for us, the promises that he has for us. They're so close we can taste them. We may even do something out of those promises. We may even be in them for a second. But then God reminds us of what's in, the enemy, reminds us of what's in our promised land. Hey,
there's giants.
There's giants, right? The enemy reminds us of, hey, it's not exactly how you think, right? It's funny. When I was a kid, or a teenager, right? I worked for a place called Quality Markets, and the manager was only there 2 nights a week. We'd spent 5 nights a week. Other people closed. And you would get to be the manager for a night. Like, you would get to close. And you'd get a little taste of what it was like to be our manager.
We call them closing key holders.
Yep, that's exactly what they were. No real power, no real authority, but you felt like
You're the boss that night.
And you got to make the list, and you got to close the door.
Did you get to manage your codes?
You did. You got the codes, and you got to run to the bank and deposit. You got to do all the things for just one day. You were king, right? And then the next day you go into work, and you were not the king. Somebody else was the king, right? Or the next night you were subservient to somebody else who was closing. It's just crazy, right? You get that taste of, here's what it would be like to be the boss. And then you get the next day, boom. But here's who you really are, peon. Right? Like that's the deal. And that's what the enemy wants you I don't want you to have a taste of what's going on. But if you get a taste of it, of what God could do through you and in you and with you, I'm going to remind you of where you've been, where you are, and who you are.
Real life.
Real life.
No seraphims.
Yeah, no seraphim. That's a really good title. Seraphim Christianity. That's great. People have no clue what we're talking about. We might have to ask Mel about it.
Real life. No seraphims.
There we go.
Downer.
Sounds like no Tootsie Roll Pops.
What? We should probably stop there before this turns into a Friday night.
Go.
All right, guys. Yeah. Come back next week and maybe we'll read some more of Isaiah chapter 6. Bye.